Welcome to Mission Undercover. Joining me today is entrepreneur, investor, and podcast host Young Han. He has coached over 24 businesses and helped them reach $1 million in annual revenue in less than 2 years. He owns 14 companies and hosts The Girl Dad Show, a podcast about parenting. We are going to discuss how to build a successful business and take it from idea to success. We will also discuss how to scale your business and increase your revenue. We will also talk about the best investment strategies, how to balance family and other commitments with your business, and how to maximize your financial success in 2026. I'd like to start by asking you, what inspired you to be an entrepreneur? What was your first business and was it successful?
Oh, great. Thanks for having me on the show. Yes, my inspiration for being an entrepreneur, I believe, was my father. It's hard to always say what it is, but I grew up watching my dad build business, but I also watched my grandpa build business. And I watched both of these men, trial and error through successes and failures, navigate through their careers, their businesses. And especially my dad, I just grew up around it. He moved us around quite a bit when I was younger. And as he, figured out his business and he continued to progress through different entrepreneurial experiences, he moved us around to get to this point that he was. But that's really where the bug landed. I think it's always kind of given me the optionality to do that and kind of give me that comfortability and access to that kind of lifestyle, and then watching his success. So we went from immigrants to the United States, and starting at a small little liquor store, and then we moved up to the middle class, and being able to watch this man build in one lifetime a lot of different socioeconomic status climbs was very, very inspiring for me. And then my first business was a restaurant. I actually opened up a Korean restaurant in Koreatown when I was 18 years old. The moment I became a legal adult and I didn't need my parents to sign for a business license, I became a business owner almost immediately after I turned 18. And very fortunate for me, the business was a huge success. It was unbelievably successful restaurant. We had opened up a Korean restaurant in K-Town in Santa Clara, which is a south part of the Bay Area, south part of San Francisco Bay Area. And we typically back then had Korean restaurants that were very small, dark, hole in the wall. And, I was American and I didn't know any better. So I opened it up and I turned on the lights and put in a hostess stand and nice tiles. And we kind of Americanized it, and it blew up. We did $3.5 million in revenue our first year in business. And I was very, very fortunate that the first business was a success.
Okay, so talk me through the first step. If someone has a desire to be financially secure, but has no business ideas or doesn't know where to start, where can they start and find that same spark and inspiration that you found?
I think that it's around surroundings, who you hang out with, and really putting yourself in an ecosystem of people that are building business. I think less than studying or doing things, the network that you hold is way more valuable, because business is never how do I say this? It's not if something bad is going to happen, it's when something bad is going to happen. Owning a business is just a series of really bad things happening and you trying to make the lesser of two bad decisions. That's really your job. And it's a really, really hard role, and it's incredibly difficult. So coming up with an idea is not the big thing, to be honest with you. I currently own a lot of businesses, and I don't know how to do any of the things that I would do business in. And they're all very successful. And I think it's because I learned the art and science of business, not necessarily what the business idea was. So my recommendation is hang out with more business owners. So if I can give you one more example, if you hang out with, artists, like that like to paint, and you hang out with 10 artists for a year, it might take you 6 weeks, it might take you 6 months, it might take you a year, but eventually you're going to be like, yeah, art isn't that hard, or it's not that unapproachable, or it's more accessible. And then eventually you're going to say, hey, it's something that I should try to do, or I will do, or I can do. And you'll start drawing. if you hang out with scientists, and or mathematicians or whatever you do, eventually your mind and body will start making it more approachable. I'm not saying you're going to be great at it, but at least it'll be more accessible and it'll be more natural and normal. And it's the same thing with business. And so my recommendation is, if you're really looking to build a business for the first time, start hanging out with other business owners.
What type of person do you think business is for? And what are the characteristics of a successful businessman? What comes to your mind when you think of that?
Determination and perseverance, and optimism. I think that you have to have an unhealthy dose of optimism, because it's never easy, and no one's gonna really be that supportive until you make it. It's kind of these things where um, yeah, you need to be very optimistic, because people will automatically assume things won't work, and if they are supportive, they're generic support. It's not a very, very specific support. It's very like, oh yeah, you got this. I believe in you. You can do it. It's not like a support that's like deep inside of the business or actually tactical and helpful, because most people don't own business and most people don't go through that journey. So they're more generic rah-rah support. So you have to be very, very optimistic yourself so you can drive through a lot of the unknown. It's a lot of decision making in the unknown. And then I'd say determination and perseverance, because it's just going to keep messing up. I mean, there's nothing easy about building a business, and it's just a series of trials and tests, and figuring out what you're going to do, and then making mistakes and failing and losing money and almost dying, and it's just like, that's all business is just a series of tests. And especially in the beginning, 0 to 1 is all about testing, testing, testing. And so if unless you're incredibly determined and have high perseverance, you won't sustain and be able to navigate through that.
What's the first steps that someone needs to take to get their idea off the ground?
I have a rule of 100. So anytime I start a business, I interview 100 people in that industry or space. And if you have a product that's so innovative that doesn't have a competitor or whatever, then just look for ancillary competition, or people that are in multiple ancillary or adjacent industries to interview. But my thought is that you need to interview 100 people that are doing what you're going to be doing, because it will make you a lot more successful. First and foremost, getting 100 people to meet you for a 25-minute interview is unbelievably hard. I think that on average, I have to email or ask 1,000 people to get 100 people to say yes to meet me. So just the act of asking 1,000 people, getting 900 no's to get 100 people to say yes, will automatically show me that I want to do this business. It gives me the understanding that I care about it enough, and it's interesting enough for me to persevere through that. Because I will tell you that most people won't even ask 100 people, but if you can ask 1,000 people to get 900 no's to get 100 people to meet you, you will have the perseverance and determination and the desire to actually succeed in that business, because it's going to be hard. The second thing is, if you could talk to 100 people, you will learn more about that business and industry than any book or chat GPT or blog or podcast you could ever read, right? You'll have an intimate knowledge and contextual knowledge about that business. Not only the functional aspects of it, but the emotional journey the founder will go through, and the seasonalities, the nuances and context that doesn't come from reading a book, right? Talking to actual people that are doing it. And then the last thing is, when you interview 100 people, what I have found is that there are 4 or 5 people that are in that 100 that absolutely love you, that you just jam with, that you vibe with. And then that becomes your mastermind group. And through that interviewing process, you find these people that you are really, really well connected with emotionally and personally, and you latch onto them and you say, hey, I'm going to do this business. I'd love for you to be friends with me. And now you have a mastermind group helping you navigate through the journey of building this business that are also in the business. So whether it's technical, functional, tactical, or even just emotional, you have someone that can relate with you. That makes it that much easier and gives you a better bet of success in that business.
Okay. Most businesses don't survive past the first year. So once you have these connections, how can you use that and your other skills to beat your competitors and stay secure within the market?
I don't think about it as beating my competitors. I think about it as just being in business and figuring out what works for you. And so my recommendation is make $1 million. So it's not just the 1 year mark; it's the $1 million annual revenue mark. And that dollar figure may change, as we have changes in cost of metrics, in currency metrics. But as of right now, my recommendation is try to make $1 million in annual revenue a year, and don't worry about the 1 year, closure rate. Don't worry about your competitors. Don't worry about your competition. Just keep chopping wood and keep testing on your business until your business makes $1 million in annual revenue. That's what I recommend, because if you worry too much about your competition, it's a huge waste of calories. Your business is already fragile as it is. To worry about everybody else, just worry about yourself and do you. The world is a lot more abundant than you may realize. It is incredibly diverse, and there is enough money in business out there for all of us if we want to. And if we don't, obviously at certain scale and size, you have to worry about your competitors. But in the beginning, there's an edge for you to really build, even with your competitors. And so a lot of my businesses, I have competitors in, and I'm friends with them, and I collaborate with them, and I talk to them, because sub 10 million, it's not really that important, I don't think, to worry about your competitors too much. And then as it relates to well, I mean, it does matter to sorry, it does matter to worry about your competitors, but it's not a good use of your calories. In early stage, like, you have to spend all of your time focusing on you and yourself, trying to figure out your product market fit, your pricing, your customer service, your delivery. There's just too many things to worry about right now, and just focus on what fits you and what makes you feel good as a business, and then worry about competitors next. But it is something to concern about. I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that in the beginning, it doesn't matter as much as people think it does. And then as it relates to how do you make sure that you don't die, you have to make that gauge. So my recommendation is build financial models and forecasts. And even if it's rudimentary, try to understand, like, hey, this is going to be a $20,000 bet that I'm going to make, and I have $30,000 in the bank. So this is going to be a really big bet. Do I want to do this? Do I not? How long am I willing to do this for? What am I willing to risk? I call it the XYZ. So what am I trying to do for Y result? What am I trying to do for Y amount of time for Z result? And that's the X, and then the Y and the Z. So I try to always build out XYZs for everything. And then you have to make that judgment yourself as an entrepreneur to say, is this bet worth the risk? And everyone has different risk aversity, right? You have to basically map that out based against your risk aversity. And it's a lot easier to do if you have formulas and math in front of you.
Okay, so how do you scale your business and take it to that next level that you're talking about, past that million mark? And what sets apart global dominators and global competitors like Amazon from regular medium-sized companies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm doing it right now. I mean, just to give you a couple of anecdotes. I started a pool cleaning company 4 years ago, and I have the largest private equity firms actively trying to compete with me, and they're trying to beat me. And not just beat me, they're trying to buy me and kill me, actually. And I have a hundredth of the funds that they have, right? And I think that it's fine, right? Like, there's ways to navigate that, and there are ways to compete against that, because there are different strengths that come with being small, and you have to leverage what you have, not try to compete at the game that they're playing. So if I'm competing head to head with a private equity fund that has a lot of capital, has a lot of people, has a lot of connections, then I'm playing the wrong game, right? I'm never going to win, because I'm small. I don't have as many connections. I don't have as much money. I don't have as many people. And. So you got to find out what I have that they don't have. And I have a local story. I have a local community story. And so what I switched to doing was investing in my local community. I started donating 20% of all of our marketing spend into the local nonprofits and causes. And I really pumped this message of buying local and being a part of the local community, hiring local employees, giving them equity, and doing a lot of these things that are just things that are in my control that they can't do. And so it allows me to have an edge and find the right people in my community that want that. And it's allowed me to not only survive, but also grow and thrive. So that's the answer for the second question. And then the first question goes back to very similarly to how I compete against these other companies. It's programmatically thinking through what works and doesn't work. So this is going to sound really terrible, but it's actually pretty simple. And I don't mean to trigger anybody, but I'm doing this at scale. So I built an operating system that I've been using over the last 4 years to build 20 businesses. I'm on 14 right now. I have 4 more that I'm building next year. And now I coach people on how to do this as well. So there's a whole operating system that I teach people how to do because I know it works pretty well. And the concept is very, very simple. It's there's 4 phases, but the whole thing is really very simple. It narrows down to this concept of XYZ. So for example, let's say I want to get good leads. So top of funnel is the thing I want to solve. I'll ask all my friends, maybe 5, 10 of my business friends, 5, 10 of my personal friends, maybe 5 or 10 people in my family. And I'll say, hey, I'm running a pool cleaning company. What are 5 or 10 really great marketing ideas to get leads? And then I'll take all these ideas from everybody. I get, especially my mom. My mom always thinks she's the world's greatest business owner. She always has advice for me. So she'll always tell me how to run my business better. So I'll ask her these ideas, and then you take these ideas and then you build them into XYZs. So I'll say, hey, that one was a good idea, or it wasn't a good idea. Some of these ideas suck. I'm not going to lie. Most of these ideas are dumb, but you write them out anyways. You just say, hey, this is this idea of putting a sign guy out in the front of the office and flipping signs and doing whatever. That's going to cost me $20 an hour. And I'm going to try that for 6 weeks. And my goal is to get 10 leads out of that. That would make my money's worth for the $20 an hour. I don't know. You do some calculations, right? You basically make it into an XYZ. What do I want for Y amount of time for Z result? You write it down. And then you take these like 40, 50 ideas and you just write them all down and you turn them into XYZs. So they're very binary. They're very calculatable, quantifiable, and measurable. And as boring as it sounds, you do 2 or 3 of them at a time and you just start doing it. And then you go to the next one, till something works well. But then what's really fun is by quantifying it in XYZs and doing all these tests, you just go back after 3 months, after 6 months, after 1 year, and something will have a higher ROI. Something will basically have a better CAC to LTV. The cost of acquisition will be better than something else. It's just the way the math works. Something will cost you less time or money to get higher results. And then eventually, if you do like 10 of these tests, 2 or 3 of them will perform the best. And then you move those 2 or 3 up, and then you do those 2 or 3 tests. 2 or 3 tests as your stable tactics. And then you go and hire someone else and you say, hey, I'm a shitty marketer. I'm not good at marketing. If I do these 10 hours, 20 leads come out every month. Your job is to beat this because you're better than me at marketing in 2 months, or you're fired. And you start delegating that out, and then you spend your time working on the bottom of funnel. So now you have to work on closing, getting the conversion rate higher, getting the close rate lower. And then you go ask your friends and family, give me 20 ideas for how to close better. They do the same thing. How do I deliver this product better? How do I hire people better? How do I engage people better? How do I operationalize this business better? Like, this is all I do. You just basically build out everything into XYZs and you just test and let the math run the business.
Do you think ambition and vision matter as much as quality?
I think they're both important. But if you're forcing me to answer that, I would say that I'm personally in a stage in my life where vision matters less now. I think when I was younger, I was very big into like, you need a vision and you need a vision and you need a dream, and you need to have that kind of big vision of what you're trying to achieve and all those things. And now that I'm older, I don't think it matters. I mean, it just depends on what you want in life, right? For me, it's like, my vision is not anything to do with business. My vision is to have cash flow, and time freedom. My vision is to spend more time with my young daughters and my family and my health, and spend what I can when I'm still able to travel and experience life. And so my vision has nothing to do with achieving some business goal. It's to achieve, personal goals. And if that's the case, the business just needs to serve me. And if that business just needs to serve me, then realistically speaking, it doesn't need to be crazy successful. I don't need to build an Amazon. I just need to build a bunch of businesses that make $1 million a year and pay me $50,000 in free cash flow.
What's the best way for small businesses to raise investment? What do you look for personally when you're investing in small businesses?
Yeah, so small business investors are a little bit different than tech founders. So I will say that if you're raising for a software company or tech, you want to think about it in a sense of scale and different multiples. And I would recommend you watch the YC Combinator podcast, or the Andreessen podcast, or some of these other podcasts that have a lot to do with this kind of deal flow making. Either ways, I mean, especially for tech founders, if it's early stage and I'm the first, check in, we're doing, friends and family or pre-seed stage, I really look for founders. I look for founders with a chip on their shoulder, something to prove. I can feel and see that they will get knocked down 50 times and they'll still get up. That's what I look for when I make tech investments. I'm looking for people that are willing to keep getting up, and they have something to prove that's way more than money. They have an ego. They were not loved as a child. I don't know, but like there's something wrong with them, and they need to prove something that's way more than money. Money is the measuring stick. It's not the end goal. And there are certain questions that I ask to help solicit that, and then I'll make an investment in that way. As it relates to traditional small business, I typically will do it through what I think I can contribute. So when I look to invest or buy into a small business that's more service-based or brick and mortar or traditional business, non-tech, I will look at it and say, hey, does this person have complementary skills to me so that I can provide operational skills, my operating system and my financial skills to augment this business to greater heights? Like, is there Achilles heel operations and finance? And I will say it's very common that it is in small business, because most people start a small business because they think they're really good at something or they're really passionate about something. And so, everyone tells them that their cookies are the best. So they start a cookie company. They say that, oh my gosh, you're really good. I really love dogs and I really love training dogs. They start a dog training company, right? Like, it's either passion led or skill set led, right? That's how people start a small business. And so they're not really operations and finance experts. So I'll go in and I'll say, hey, I think that if I applied some financial rigor and operational systems, we can take this and double or triple it. And if we double or triple it, the average small business does 15% in profit, maybe 10 to 15% in profit. Of that, I'd love a third of it, or I think I can take, a fifth of it, or I'll calculate what I think is acceptable for that business once we get it to scale. And that business owner needs to make a lot of money and they need to grow with it. And so I try to do my calculus and say, hey, I think I can make $50,000 a year from this if I get it to $2 million in annual revenue in 2 years. And is that worth it to me to do that? I don't know. So then I reverse engineer and I calculate how much time it'll take me. I think it'll take me to get them there. And then based on that, I'll give them money and say what percentage I want for it. It's all math for me. Sorry, I know that's not a really good answer. I apologize, but it's all math. And I calculate basically what I want. I want my money back in 2.5 years. And then I want some sort of residual payments for the rest of my life.
Okay. Let's move to talking about other investments. What are the 3 best things that you think are good to invest in 2026? What assets or what other things do you think that people can invest in?
Well, it's really tricky to invest in small business, but I would say that if you can figure it out and you can do what I do, you should try to get into the trades, the home, especially home services. And I don't know if I hear that you have a little bit of an accent and we're talking in a weird time zone. So I'm not sure if you're American or not, but in America,
I'm British.
British. Okay, cool. So I don't know what it's like in Britain, but in America, it is really interesting time where there aren't enough plumbers and there are not enough workers, like trades workers. So it's really, really fascinating time. And if you can invest into a trades business, I would highly recommend doing it, because I do think that AI is disruptive and it will continue to disrupt. But for now, Someone still needs to, fix your clogged toilet. Someone needs to still clean your pool. Someone still needs to do your roof. And there are things that people need that won't be disrupted for a little bit, or even if it will be, it'll just be augmented and optimized. And there's just not enough young people going into the trades. So our repopulation rate is shrinking, and we have a huge balloon of people that are retiring and or retired, the boomer generation, and they have all this pent up capital, and they're going to spend it on services, and there's not enough young people to go around to support that economy. And so you're talking about a huge escalation in rates and prices for these trades. And until the robots are more advanced and savvy enough to go do these things, that's a great place to bank your money. Is my thought, is really a good place to put your money is in the trades. And even if there are robots, I mean, I still think it's a great place to put in the trades, because I feel like the businesses that'll learn how to use robotics and in their trades business will be able to navigate a new kind of generation of trades businesses. But that's where I think a good place to bet is.
You could say that's AI proof as well, because AI can't really do that kind of stuff.
Yes and no. I mean, I think that you're right. That's kind of the moniker right now, is that AI can't really do plumbing and clean pools. But I do believe eventually robots will take over these roles, and they'll come in a meaningful way. And then the moment you have robots, that's when you have AI, right? So AI will come into the space. It'll just take a longer time than these white collar jobs. They'll come in a lot later than the white collar jobs, but I do think it'll come for roofing and pool cleaning and all those things. It'll just be a little bit later, and there are going to be different ways to navigate that.
What are the biggest lessons you've learned from interviewing successful people, whether that's on your podcast or just when you're networking with people?
This is really great question. I have found time and time again, the more I interview people and the more I talk to people that are successful, there's a common theme, and they all kind of invest in themselves in some way or fashion. They invest in themselves a lot, and what I mean is, it's really interesting. They're very sophisticated. They're very experienced. They're very savvy, and they give me advice. And a lot of these people will be able to, tell me things because they've already walked 1,000 miles in my shoes. Yet they still hire a sales coach. They still hire a business coach. They still hire a therapist. They still hire a trainer. They still read books. They still listen to podcasts. They still invest in themselves. So whether that's time, money, services, they put back into themselves. Even if it's a skill that they're great at, they still invest in it to hone it, to sharpen it, to keep it really, really strong. And I've noticed that. And it's really interesting, because you would think that it's like a waste of money if you're really good at sales. Let's say you made your money making sales. Why would you hire another sales coach? Or you're really good at business. Why would you hire another business coach? But it's, I think, this act of like honing that skill and maintaining it like a muscle, and just constantly focusing and working on it, is the common theme that I found, is this investment in self.
Okay, so how did you balance all of your other commitments with your business, like parenting and all your other interests outside as well?
Yeah, I'm still learning how to do that. I mean, I've been on this journey of building 20 businesses for 4 years now. I'm on my last year. This is my last year of doing it. I'm on a 5-year plan, and I don't think I'll hit 20. I think I'll end up doing like 15 or 16. I started more than 20. I just failed a lot of businesses to have the 14 that I have. I mean, people look at the 14 that I have in 4 years and they think it's incredible, but I'm like, dude, I like failed like 15 businesses, and I've lost a lot of money. So it's not as glamorous as it looks, right? But I will say that it's really about inputs and outputs. So how I do it, and again, this is something that I'm still learning to master, because the level of skill that I need to employ to manage these portfolio businesses is evolving. And I wrote a really kind of heartfelt newsletter this last week on my newsletter about my 2025 recap, and um, it's something that I'm still learning how to do. But if I have to tell you what I do to manage it on day to day, it's I track every hour. So I track every hour that I live, how much I sleep, how much I spend time with my kids, how much I spend on my health, how much I spend time on clients, how much I spend on what business, and it's all color coded and it generates little reports. I use a free tool. I mean, I use Clockify, but I think Toggle is another great free tool. But I just track it, and then at the end of the month, I look back and I say, hey, how do I feel emotionally? How do I feel financially? How do I feel with my family? How do I feel personally? How do I feel physically? And I kind of gauge that, and I say, where were my hours spent? What were the inputs looking like? And then I'll track. I said, oh, I spent 30 hours a week with my kids. I spent, this, 20 hours with this client, 5 hours with this business, da da da. And then here are the results that I got from it. Okay, so this coming month, I'm going to try to tweak it because I really want to spend more time with my kids. I'm going to try to up that to 35 hours a week, and I'm going to maybe sleep less, and I'm going to do this. And I just play around with those numbers and I put it into my calendar, and I test it again. So every 30 days, I just look at my calendar and I track it by hours, and then I track inputs versus outputs and see how I feel. And then that's how I create integration, not necessarily balance, but that's how I control how I spend my time between my different business efforts and my family. It's a little weird, but it works for me and kind of leans into the whole concept of I like operations and math, so it works really well for me.
Finally, what do you think are the biggest challenges that entrepreneurs will face in the next 5 to 10 years?
Labor. It's so hard to find labor, especially if you're in a small business doing trades and finding younger labor. So I think it's easier to find experienced labor, but I think it's going to get harder and harder in the next 5 or 10 years for early stage employees that need lower cost labor to attract young people to work for you. Um, and I'm not talking about the cultural norms. I don't really. I'm not even mentioning, the cultural differences in the next generation versus this generation or whatever. I don't really even talk about that. I just going back to what we talked about earlier. We're just not having enough kids in this country. So there's just not enough people to work, and so you got to imagine that if there isn't enough people to flip burgers or clean pools or because just we're just not repopulating fast enough, something's got to give. And I think what's going to happen is that most of the young people are going to go and get the highest paying job they can, which will inevitably, I think, be in senior care. I think that senior care will be what draws them because senior care can be paid for by the largest holders of the wealth in America, which is that boomer generation. And I think they'll attract all the young people into that because these youngsters can make more money doing that than traditional service jobs. And I think that's going to be a really, really hard thing for most small business owners and founders, tech founders, to compete against, is finding younger, lower cost labor.
Okay, thank you for your time. Where can people find your services and your social media as well?
So just go to alwayshan.com. So it's my last name, HAN, and then alwayshan.com. And then I'm on LinkedIn. I have a weekly newsletter. And then if you're interested in my operating system, it's owners.club.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for watching and listening. I hope to see you all next time. Thank you very much.